Hi there. Every Sunday, a group of autistic people get together and drop in. It's an informal group, but some of the things that people say deserve a bigger audience. So they give us permission for us to put them in an edited reel. And that's what we're here for. Today's edited reel of the conversations that we have about our own autism. Cheers. Enjoy.
Jules is just clearing his throat from India.
Yeah, he's been away a long time.
So it looks like I have to wear headphones. They're making my ears all sweaty at this time of year.
You need cooling ones, some nice cooling headphones.
Mines are good. They're really light, so you don't feel them too bad.
Who was it that was giving me advice last week on moulded ones that mould to your bones or something?
I've heard of there were like ones, is it bone resonating headphones? It sounds it's quite a name, but they don't go in your ears. They kind of sit across your temples, and the sound is kind of just sent to your ears through your bones. They do work. Bone conducting, yeah.
Imagine quite expensive. So, Lucy, I need some tips. I was doing some recording for Substack this week, and when I played it back, there was a lot of this weird, like, sound on hard consonants like D and T and P. And I tried everything.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't do my own audio, like the actual, producing the audio. That's my husband that does it, but Jules will help you because he's given us some tips. But yeah, I mean, it's about gating it, and because we're using a tool called Audacity. So I record into this. It's a little recording studio, and you just do your words through it, and it records on. And then we take that, and then we take it, and then we produce it afterwards. So my husband will be able to help you. I'm no good at these things, and Jules will certainly be able to help you on that one. But take all the sort of that p and t and all that off. I think that there's a kind of a gating thing, and there's all level. Basically, I'm really confused about this stuff, but I could probably get you some tips.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I used to use Audacity a while ago. And there's Harry. But I just was wondering if you actually use the recording facility in Substack, because it has this thing where you embed audio and then you press record, and then it recorded me. But I imagine it's probably a little bit of a cheapo version.
No, all I do is I use this setup to record with the ones that we got, and then I'll just take it and then load the file onto Substack. So I don't use their recorder ever. I use this because I know it's going to give me a better sound and it's going to be much clearer. And then I will just basically take the file off my computer and load it down, because you've got the embedded, and then you can upload your own audio. So that's what I do. So I don't actually use any of their tools for recording at all. I do it separately, and then I export it in.
Yeah, I'll probably download Audacity again.
Yeah, it's a really good tool, and that's what hubby uses it all the time anyway when he's downloading tunes for his job. So yeah, it's a good thing to do, and it kind of, you're a bit more in control of it. I've not tried any of their sort of in-house tools or what they're like, but I would say they're not as good as what we've actually got in our here.
So Nicola, listen to the broadcast you did with Jules. Yeah, very interesting.
Thank you. I've been really enjoying the conversations that we were having. Got quite overwhelmed. I was it's so immersed in the descriptions of travel. I had to I was really quite tired afterwards, but in a good way. So I'm preparing, I've been learning how, I'm just kind of learning how to manage my diary and my time and my energy. So I'm looking forward to kind of doing more recordings and just trying to find how I can work like the best. Like I'm not the best, but work well, and not get myself in a tiz.
I suppose practice makes perfect. It's none of us are born to this. It takes a bit of time. Yeah, it was quite an exhausting week as well with the storm and stuff. So, but I enjoyed it, and I thought you got a lot out of it. Questions are great because they prompt people into coming back with a response, and you then get something new. But I really got into Jules's little preamble, his little meditational piece on the tree and stuff. So yeah, I take it was quite overwhelming, a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. I wonder if it's something to do with like the use of your imagination to try and to see all these details that are being described. Well, for me, it was like I felt like I was taking in all the sensory information that was around me just now, and then I was also getting to take in more. So it's a really good experience, and I didn't know how I was going to do an interview. I've never really done anything like that before, so I googled it and it said that no, like to introduce tension, not to worry about things feeling uncomfortable. So I tried to I kind of like noticed at the times where I felt a wee bit tense, I was like, oh, that would be good.
Imagine there's this thing about trying to be professional as well, where we try to speak slowly and concisely, whereas naturally we'd be quite excitable and enthusiastic and all over the place and, speaking fastly with speed. Yeah. So, yeah. Gone blank there.
I think it is. I mean, it is. I think you kind of get used to talking. The more you do, my first attempts at podcasting and answering questions, I felt really pressured, and it does. It afterwards, you just feel really. I'm not. It's not unenjoyable, but it was very exhausting, and I always come out kind of feeling a bit blinky afterwards, and having to sit down for a while and just go, wow, that was a lot. But actually, it's quite exhilarating as well when you're having this really good backwards and forwards with somebody and it feels really natural. It's great. And yeah, I suppose you get more comfortable over time.
I think a lot of people pre-prepare these things. That's a horrible word, pre-prepare. They send the questions to each other and, work things out a little bit before they go for it so that they're not left, with nothing,
Yeah, my first one, I didn't know what I was getting until I got it. And that was really quite difficult because I wasn't sure which angle he was coming at. And I did have a little bit of a dialogue with him beforehand, this gentleman, and he was very good. I mean, he was really patient. I had a coughing fit halfway through and he was really patient about that and things like that. But because I felt a little bit, what's the word? Maybe not ambushed, but I felt a bit clueless. I felt like maybe I didn't go in with I hadn't pre-prepared at all because I didn't know what to pre-prepare for. I didn't know what was going to come up. And so you can't really prepare for something that you've got not a clue about. So I probably was a bit bewildered and wide-eyed when I went in, and perhaps some of the questions didn't come out right. And I wasn't 100% pleased with it. But, I mean, they got conversation out of me. Probably wasn't the best.
Yeah, I think it can just getting used to talking in lots of different settings has been a bit of a theme for me in the last year or so. I definitely have gone from somebody who couldn't really speak in a group or anything to finding that easier. And there's still times where it can just be so hard to get out what's in my head into words quite frequently. So
I've got oh, sorry. You go, Raymond.
No, I was just going to say it's not often our natural environment. So on you go.
No, I was going to say was that I've actually got a meeting on Tuesday with a group that are asking me to help with this sort of putting together information for a leaflet that they want to put together about autism, and and that's quite a big thing to be a part of. I've done the group. I've been to see this group before, and I've got another one on Tuesday. And it's being able to sit in a group of people that you don't really know all that well, and read the room and be able to just feel okay to speak. It's like if they want my ideas, and that's great, but I do feel like there's pressure on me to deliver And so I'm a little bit wobbly about going, but we'll see. You know, I'm not afraid to go. It either goes well or it doesn't. I'm not going to lose anything if they're not interested in talking to me again. You know, I'm not employed by them. I'm just there as a sort of consultant, and that's fine. So I'm trying to make it not such a big deal in my head. So when I get there, I'll be all right.
Yeah, you're fearless, aren't you? Sometimes there's things you can't get out of, so you have to compromise to the way other people want it to be. You know, that vicious thing.
Just make yourself. I mean, you just have to play it down. I have to keep playing it down in my head and just say, well, yeah, what's the very worst that can happen? You know, you can kind of catastrophize the whole thing and think, oh my God, it's all going to go terribly wrong. But I'm trying to get into this mindset that even if it goes horribly wrong, there's really not a lot on the line here. And if my contribution isn't useful, then that's fine as well. You know, I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself.
So basically, they just want some ideas from you, Lucy. Perhaps it'll be this environment of maybe sharing ideas, like showing, is it visual or?
Yeah, well, we have I have a meeting with this group, and they're looking to put together some sort of brochure. They have they're just looking for ideas and notions, and they want somebody there who can kind of guide them to what's going to be best in terms of putting information across to people who are autistic. And it's a very big thing to do, because I keep trying to tell them this is a spectrum, and you know, people will all react very differently. So I'm only one person. There are a couple of other autistic people who are actually within the organisation also helping. So they're just trying to bounce things off of me. So it's going to all be in a booklet. Basically, they're going to want to put together some literature, and that's what they're trying to get from me at the moment. How to put that across, and what's the best way of presenting information to autistic people. They're focusing really on sort of late diagnosed adult women, you know, which looks like it's my complete wheelhouse and my thing to do. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to do the same thing later with another group later on this year. I think there's the Autism Awareness Month is sort of in April, and they want me to do something with me there as well. So I've got a couple of these coming up, but I have to keep stressing I'm not the expert. I'm just a person.
Yeah, probably no one's really expecting any great shakes from anyone. You know, it's probably going to be quite a relaxed and chilled environment. And we can't really know until we get there, can we?
So I play it by ear. You know, the one thing I've learned over the last year or so. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. Been doing my own Substack for a while, and the one thing I've kind of learned is that you've got to go with it. It's about trying to engage in conversation. It's not small talk. So, I mean, if we were just having a little chat around the table about ourselves, I'd probably find it more difficult. But because it's a bit more factual, and you know, we're talking turkey a lot, it's easier to do.
So what was it you noticed there, Nicola? Was it, oh yeah, things have disappeared and changed? So it's some kind of a signal that something may be going on.
I thought it had happened before, and it just makes it hard to see if somebody's waiting to talk.
Is it the LinkedIn comments coming?
No,
live?
like, I mean, in our icons, I don't know if this is happening for everyone, but when I look on my screen, I can normally tell when somebody's unmuted, because there's a little icon with the microphone that's not got a stroke through.
Yeah, they've
Do you
gone.
know what I mean? And they've gone, I think.
Yeah, they've gone here too.
Yeah.
I've still got mine at the bottom there, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, it's because that StreamYard Live Viewer comments bar has come up in the bottom. That's what happened last time. And does that then mean that someone's coming into the chat through LinkedIn? Have to get out, exit full screen. Yeah, in comments, there's an example of where posts might appear, and that's possibly altered the screen.
Oh, I see. Where it says StreamYard, the live viewer comments. Is that the bit that's blocking it out?
Theoretically, if you go into the chat and you look at the bit where it says comments, someone's posted, or StreamYard's posted an example comment, and that might be what triggered it. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see.
I decided I'm going to paint a little corner of my living room like a different colour from the rest, and it's going to be my recording spot in the room. I'm going to have a little chair there. So it's similar to what you were saying about how do you get rid of the sibilant sounds when you're recording, but not really.
Ooh, you're creating a blue room. It was funny. I was on the Embrace Autism late diagnosis group last week, and people were talking about painting their microwaves strange colours in order to soothe the vibes.
I'm starting to work with somebody. I got connected with them through my housing officer, and they're going to give me a hand to do a bit of decluttering and creating some spaces in the house, like for storage, because I've got a lot of. I'm a kind of person who has quite a lot of projects, but I end up not managing to do them because they get buried under some stuff. But if I manage to like find a place for things like an actual home, I can do it. Like, and I know that once I set up the system, it'll be okay because that's kind of how I work. But yeah, I'm so grateful to get a wee hand to get some systems set up. And I do think that there's something about zones in your house that can help with that.
Wow, the archive, yeah. I mean, decluttering is a really important subject. I think some people, I see myself like this as a person who kind of follows the flow. Like from day to day, I can change my enthusiasms and passions. I could be really into something one day, and then the next day it's gone, forgotten. Something else is here. But you may want to return to some of them. So I think that's why I journal, which is kind of my way of archiving. But even that's getting out of control now. I've got boxes of old journals, and it's like, where is anything? So, but decluttering, I investigated that subject to see if there was any kind of help with it. And then I got a bit panicky because sometimes if you let the social services know about that, they think you're a hoarder, which then that's like your card is then marked as being vulnerable or potentially in harm. So maybe you don't want to cross that barrier. Well, not you, but myself. I felt like that. But yeah,
I am a hoarder.
Hi, Jules.
Hi, Jules, you're a hoarder.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm sorry, I've got a real serious delay, which means that I'm going to accidentally crash into people. I'm about 2 seconds behind you.
Cool.
Maybe something asynchronous will add a certain je ne sais quoi. I can't speak French at all. So that could be quite fun.
Non, c'est un trop grand problème. Avec le délai, très sérieux pour moi. Très sérieux. Juste en tout le temps, je espère d'utiliser mon microphone. Tout le temps, c'est impossible. La synchronicity n'est pas une inspiration pour moi.
Well, you got the accent down.
Do you know what? I can fucking speak French as well. I just can't think at the moment.
That's exactly what put me off learning French, which I really wanted to do, was I just could not pronounce it. Just could not get that accent.
Same. I can understand a lot more and I could write more, but it's the Scottish accent, and French is a really, really difficult one. It feels to me I get the same level of frustration as if I have to speak to one of the like telephone robot things because they don't understand Scottish either. I lived in New Zealand for a while, and it just was that there wasn't even a point me trying.
I'm guessing people don't really have a problem with my rough South London voice. You know, but I've forgotten all my French that I learnt at school, and I did get a GCSE in it. Wow, but I haven't needed to use it. I also learnt Latin, but I can't remember any of that either.
I'd quite like to learn Latin because I like plants, and I think you can learn a lot about the plants from their names as well. But it's not. I don't think it's not something that is really taught commonly anymore here.
I agree. I never got it at school either. The option wasn't even there. You could maybe insist on it in 5th year or something, but you were pushing the boat out there if you got it. And yet it would have been a fundamental thing to help understanding of language and, as you say, plant taxonomy or anything, an important language. But people who've been taught it have told me they hated it.
It was mandatory for the first 2 years of my secondary school. You had to do 2 years of Latin in your first and second years. And it's really interesting because you can find all the sort of the roots of words and all that you can see, get the word. But it was really interesting, but it's so complicated. I found it really, really complicated. And so I kind of dropped out of it come 3rd year, but entomology, that's it. Thank you.
Etymology, yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
That's the one. That's the one. But it is quite a tough language. Well, I didn't really feel like I needed to take it any further than 2 years. Let's just put it that way.
I'm an etymology addict. I was inquiring today as to what my special interest might be, because it always confuses me exactly what I want and, what my special interest might be. Possibly only an outsider can really tell. But when you brought up etymology there, I thought, God, that's it. That's the thing I like most over everything.
Yeah, it helps you connect different disparate subjects, and I love it as well. And I think if you put an N in there, it's entomology, and then you're studying bugs.
Yeah. Somebody did really have a go about my voice at one point. Yeah, that was, but bounces off me. What can I do? I am what I am.
Was that the cause, though? Or do you feel your rough London accent was a thing you were aware of before even that bastard? That there's kind of London, there's kind of southeast accents, and there's Essex, and it's like I was beginning to distinguish them when I stayed in Enfield, but not really, But to me, they're well spoken to a certain extent compared to us, but you do have an accent, yeah, and some of the East End Londoners are just loads of great accents down there, and everybody's got their own angle.
I'm totally fine with the way I speak. It's just, I was brought up in a part of the world where I'm going to do it all exaggerated now. I was I'm going to use the word common, because that's what they say you sound like when you come from my part of the world, is that you've got a common accent. And so, but I think that I speak quite well. I was a lot rougher when I was a kid, but but you can't help what you get. But London's a fascinating place when it comes to these things, because it's London's a big place, but it's almost like it's a little, what's the word? It's like a collection of villages rather than being one big thing, one whole. My husband comes from a different part of London, has a different accent,
I could always make out London accents and southeast accents. I knew what they were saying. Whereas when I used to speak, like after a drink or two and went into my own accent down there, people would go, "What? What are you saying?" Which I found amusing. Apart from the Sean Connery references.
Oh no, that's not as fun.
I don't have any problem with, Scottish accents. I can totally, I don't understand like when you have like a documentary that's American, and they place subtitles over people's accents. I was watching something yesterday. I think there was Scottish accents, and it was an American thing, and they were putting up subtitles, and I found that a little bit insulting, to be honest. Like, wow, okay.
When I was in Enfield, a guy I worked with told me he'd read Trainspotting by Irvin Welsh and really enjoyed it. And I thought, could you understand the dialect as it was written down? Because even I was struggling with it because I had to acclimatise to it because it's like a Leith accent. And it was like sweat, fair lashing off me. And things like that, and like say, and all those things. It's like I had to remind myself what these things meant. But this guy went, no, it was no problem. I really enjoyed the book. So fair play.
Yeah, I've read it. It's fantastic. And you know, it's because it's done in an accent. It's actually more interesting. It's really good.
Yeah, I think he was the most successful at that. There was all these kind of serious Scottish writers before him who tried to use accent, and it just looked like an exercise. I did Chaucer, you know, one of those, what are those things where you try and get into university as a mature student? Anyway, I did an English class and we did Chaucer, and it was perfect when it was read out, and then the teacher knew how to do it, so that was really great.
Oh yeah, I like a foundation course because I did that because I went through the OU, did like a course there before I went into university. So yeah, and then when I moved on to university, I did English and comparative literature and history of art. But you know, I went through a foundation course. I found it all really fascinating because I did it as an adult student. It's a totally different thing being a grown up doing education somewhere like in a college with lots of younger people around you.
Ah, so you went into further education big time. See, I failed at that, you know, that was my general plan, but, you know, I had sort of like social issues going on at the time, which interrupted my study, and then bad discipline, just blew it.
I bummed out of college. I went to quite a good secondary, and then I went on to a college where I didn't really last the course. So I had O levels like GCSEs. I didn't do my A levels, completely skipped them. And then when I got a little bit older, I realised that it's something that I'd missed out on. I left home too early, and I had some time. I thought, no, I'm gonna look into this. So I really got into it big time. Loved it. Haven't used it. You know, you get a degree, but I don't know how much it really helps in the end. But it was more for my own. So I felt like I'd done it. You know, it's for my own personal achievements.
A self-esteem thing.
Totally, because I feel like I missed out, and being able to go and finish that thing, I felt that I'd leapfrogged over all this stuff and just found a different way. And then I really felt like I'd missed out because I hadn't done that stuff that I wanted to do. So yeah, and it made me feel really great. I mean, I got not the best degree. I got a 2-1, but it was, for me, it was like, wow, that's amazing. I can't believe I've actually managed to do this all by myself and get it all done.
I feel like society missed out because it didn't get me an education. I couldn't cope with the way that they wanted it to be, the way they wanted to teach, the way they wanted it. And I'm a smart guy, and society missed out. I didn't miss out. It was their problem.
You are a smart guy, man. You've got lots going on. It is a failing in society that can't create the space for people to truly like find themselves in that way or express themselves. Although some do well going through the system and the institutions. Yeah. I'm intrigued by the fact that Lucy's done comparative literature. Does this mean you're well read and you can possibly do book reviews?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, my whole it was a really complicated. We did a lot of Shakespeare and Chaucer and a lot of sort of, I don't know, you know, like the Odyssey. It was really just like a lot of stuff over the 3 years that I did. Do you know, it's like a muscle I haven't used since then, because going into the world and getting a job, all that stuff that's in my head, because I'm really into art history as well. I've always been into that, and there's just no place to use it, you know. And when you bring up that you've done this stuff, almost in a way, they say, well, everything you're going to do here, you're going to find really boring because you're not going to use it, and you know, you're going to get frustrated, which wasn't I wasn't really looking to use it in the outside world. It was really just for myself. But like I say, it's not a muscle I use very often.
People often said that, didn't they? You had the day job and then you had your personal interests, and never the twain shall meet. Apart from my friend Jack, who works in bookshops, she used to, and yeah, main high street bookshops, but she's in her spare time an Egyptologist.
I guess the thing is that the literature I've always really enjoyed reading before that was, I'm a big Stephen King fan. And I was really banging into him and still am. So I kind of had this balance of really liking things like Shakespeare and all that sort of thing, but at the same time quite liking trashy sort of horror movie stuff, and I'm big on that. I really like that sort of side of things. So maybe I quite like the trashy stuff a lot.
Not wrong with Stephen King. It's noted as one of the greatest writers because he's got this technique and method, and he's a very good teacher how to write as well. The dog I inherited from the woman who I used to look after, she was really into those books and had loads of them, the Hannibal books as well. The authors aren't coming to mind just now, but Stephen King was a big favourite of hers.
Yeah, well, it stuck with me, really. Probably it's all in my head at the moment because I watched The Shining the other day on the TV. So I'm back into my Stephen King thing at the moment.
Well, I'm of that generation, possibly sharing this with Jules, that grew up in the 70s and had all these movies that were written by Stephen King, like Christine, The Stand, The Shining, Carrie. They were all there.
Yeah, Christine was the first one I read, and I think my mum had a copy of it in the house, and I saw the film and then found the book on the bookshelf, and I was probably, I don't know, I must have been really young, and read it and just thought, I just really liked that feeling of being freaked out by words and, and the descriptions, and it felt really like big and scary, but when you read a book, it's not like watching a horror film. You can kind of say, it's like turning pages and reading it, and you can stop and pause and then go back to it. And so I always preferred the book versions of things. I prefer to read literature about it rather than watch stuff.
Yeah, Jules is mentioning that he finds it all a bit scary. And yeah, when you read it, it gets more into your head than kind of audio-visual kind of treatment. Sometimes I think horror's a bit like metal, heavy metal music, it'll never die. Who was it? Cathy Unsworth, who wrote the book on goth music. She said that it's a genre that will never die. It's the undead.
Filmed horror, I don't like. I don't like gore, and I don't. That sort of thing really does not do anything for me at all. I won't go and see a scary movie at the cinema or whatever, because I find that just, that, and it could be too extreme and too awful. And yeah, and I do feel that there is quite a lot of horror in the world, but it's the literature side thing is different, I think. It's as visceral as you need it to be.
I've been watching some old movies of mine in my collection of favourites just to see if they still work. And the one I watched last night was The Shout with Alan Bates and John Hurt and Tim Curry and try to think of the actress now, Susanna York. And it's brilliant. It stands up. It's really weird. It's really strange. And it was written by Robert Graves in 1929 as a reaction to his experiences of the First World War and his treatment thereafter. So he got this drama out of it, which is out there, based on Aboriginal stuff. Really good movie.
There seems to be this thing about autistic people where they either completely avoid these things because we feel too much about what's going on the screen. You feel it's happening to you, or they're really into it. The thrill of it. It seems very polar to me.
Yeah, TV is really popular in the autistic community just now.
I have to watch what I'm careful what I watch because I find it quite overwhelming. But I was watching a film. I was watching a film with someone, and it was one of those creepy moments where you know that the monster's going to jump out. And she said to me after, she's like, I decided I didn't want to jump, so I just decided to take the perspective of the monster, and I thought it was genius.
More of that.
Oh, I jumped out my skin. I hadn't thought that far ahead.
So this is generally a media conversation about consuming media on the back of Lucy's academic experience. Because sometimes I can do without media for quite long periods, because I think, as Jules was hinting at earlier, life itself is maybe worth pursuing rather than representations of it.
Yeah, there's definitely times where I almost can't cope with media because I've got so many thoughts in my own head and feelings that I need to process. And I do give myself a lot of time to do that now. And it's nice. I had gone through a really big phase of that, not being able to watch anything that lasted for probably years. And it was really nice to kind of go back to media and find an awesome series about Greek gods and goddesses that was on Netflix. It was so good, called Chaos. I loved it.
Oh, I watched that. That was amazing. I thought it was so good. It was just the way that it was presented in that kind of really modern way. It just made it really accessible and really interesting. Yeah, totally get that one.
I was jumping around the room. It's such a great show. And I think it's that somebody's up and said come in the show, and it's so satisfying.
Is that the one that was quite camp? Jove or Jupiter romping about?
Very, deliciously, in such a Greek way. Ancient Greek way.
Processing our own thoughts is going to be an important thing going on, though, creating our own kind of media space, to do that.
Jules has shared in the chat, thinking takes the same space. And I do agree. I feel like it's almost like our imagination, that same part.
It's almost like our imagination can get colonized. Sorry, Jules.
I'm sorry. There seems to be a pattern amongst the autistic community where we watch things that have these narratives where things get resolved in ways that they don't get resolved in real life. So we watch things where good triumphs over evil and the bully gets his comeuppance. And it seems to be we get involved in it for the catharsis of it.
So that's what Derry Girls was all about.
I tend to watch things. If I watch something, I stream a lot of stuff. I really do. I'm really taking quite a lot of things at the moment. I'm watching. What am I watching? I've been watching things like Squid Game, and just what's out there. And there's a thing called Severance on Apple at the moment, and I like things where after I've watched an episode, it sticks with me and I think about it and I can roll it around in my head, and I really like to think about what that is and what's coming next or whatever. I quite like these little series where I can go, I'm really looking forward to seeing if it's going to take me where I think it's going to take me.
Was Severance the one about the brain implants?
Yeah, well, they've got an innie and an outie, so they have this thing in their heads, this chip, that when they walk through the get into the lift to go to the floor to where they work, they forget about the world that they have outside, so their personal lives are just completely wiped from their brain, so that they're only there to work. And then when they go home, they become their outie and they don't remember anything they have done at work. So there's two really divided, separate worlds that they're living in, and it's all about how people cope with that, what it would be like to have your memories severed, just so that you could be totally focused on something, and then you have to go back out there and discover the world again.
Sounds like full-time employment.
Pretty much. But at least you could leave it at the office in this one.
Yeah, it was employment based, wasn't it? It was all about the office.
Oh, I watched a animated series on Netflix, and it was based around this idea of work, and it was Carol in the End of the World. If you haven't seen that, I would really recommend it. It's beautiful, like sublimely beautiful, the way it's written.
My friend recommended that highly, and I can't remember if I've really watched it. I'm sure I have, but I'd have to remind you the plot. When you watch a lot of things, you totally forget what you've watched. But anyway, I watch a lot of Scandinavian crime dramas, which is meant to be just predictably autistic. But recently I've not been able to because the channels I use to watch my stuff, the subtitles aren't working anymore.
So you can't hear it. I can't hear my telly without my subtitles.
Oh, I can hear it. They're all speaking in Danish or Swedish or Norwegian or Finnish, but I can't translate it into English.
Oh, I understand. Sorry, I have them on for English as well, so I can hear it.
Well, in Netflix and things, you get that ability because you're kind of legal, you know. Other options provide you with subtitles, and suddenly they've stopped working. So I may have to go into that Channel 4 thing that does foreign TV.
That's the Water Presents thing, isn't it? They have on there. Is that the thing?
Yeah, but it's full of ads, I believe.
If it's on Channel 4, yeah, they have ads all the way through it. That's the thing. You know, the BBC, at least you get this kind of an uninterrupted flow.
But really, it's a balance. You know, life's like a wheel, isn't it? You can have too much of one thing and not enough of another. And sometimes I think just vegging out in front of TV is a necessary antidote to things.
Did anybody else used to go down rabbit holes on was it CFAX on the telly? You could find loads of really cool stuff on CFAX in like the 80s and 90s.
Oh,
Or
back when there wasn't
oh,
all-night
teletext.
TV. Yeah, yeah.
Teletext it was.
After the Hitman and Her at 3 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, completely lost my train of thought. I'll be back.
Hi, Robbie.
How's it doodling? We're just about to end the hour almost here. No wheels, man.
Is it getting repaired, Robbie?
So you'll be at a loose end, while you're waiting. Although sometimes these things are necessary, They just take advantage of the time off. Yeah, it can be, mate. Do you have a local library, no? Yeah, I've met a few people in libraries, mind, especially in the audio sections.
Good evening, everyone. Just checking my sound.
Sounds luscious, Harry.
Luscious. Sorry I wasn't here tonight. I got too comfortable and I thought I'll just put it on as assistance. Then I see a message half an hour later saying we may need you tonight. So apologies that I wasn't available.
I think we've been okay, Harry. We've been chatting about we've been talking about media, like books and education and bikes and all sorts.
We have a new guest.
I see.
That wasn't rhetorical. I'm actually asking, have we got a new guest somewhere?
Okay, just to clarify, guys, Lickler asked me whether it was a good or a bad thing that we're all chatting on. And I suppose what I was doing was putting in the chat when Robbie arrived, I said, hi, Robbie, in the chat. And then I put after it, the conversation is really fast. And that's a kind of subtle way, which turned out to be unnecessary, to be a dad or in some way be some kind of facilitator, to just make people aware that we advertise this as fairly slow conversation so that people get the opportunity to turn on their mic and join in, because we're autistic, and so I don't know how, but I just in some subtle way tried to make it a thing. It's not in any way saying that what's been happening is a bad thing, because it's lovely to hear everybody really enjoying and rattling off against each other. It's just somehow, as a group, it's really important for us to be aware that there is a huge difference in people's communication. I don't feel as though I would have had an easy space joining this conversation if I wasn't so secure in myself and my position in this group already. And somehow, as new people or people who have not spoken as much join in, somehow, I don't know how we do it, we just have to continue to make it always in the back of our head to be inclusive. Now shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying, Jules. I think it's just to be aware, but not to feel restricted yourself in conversation, but to make sure that everybody has a chance to have a say. And I think, in the main, we've actually done that pretty well. But it's good to be reminded, because there's always a chance there'll be somebody new coming in, and it's just to be as accessible as possible. So I totally agree with what you said.
Thanks for that, Robbie.
Yeah, thanks for that comment, Robbie, and I can totally identify what you're saying. Especially when I find it difficult to pretend to like something or feel comfortable in something. If I'm not comfortable, it shows, and sometimes that brings kind of negative kind of feedback towards you. Even though you're not trying to be bad, you're just kind of showing it's just you're not comfortable. It's only natural to be uncomfortable. So it's good that we are as inclusive as we can be, but it's saying that can always improve.
We need to set that up as a topic for discussion.
Well, the 555, which is coming up, Facebook discussion, may bring that. The first post is kind of related to that.
That was a fucking...
On you go, Robbie.
I'm sorry, my brain's gone blank. I'm just not with it today. Robbie, you're so welcome here, mate. Everybody has been lovely to you as well. I feel as though I just have stuck my bloody foot in it and fucked things up. So I'm sorry, everybody. We are at the end now, and we really should prepare it, get a break, so we move over to the 555. Robbie, do you have the link for the 555, should you want to join in with the Harry's discussion?
It's 5:44 now, so our drop-in hour is finished, and thank you to all the people who have texted, and also to the people who have put their voices to this, that are going to allow us to put some of those words out into the podcast. If you join us here at the 444, your voice isn't recorded, your text isn't recorded, but the people here have given permission so that it's an example for others. See you again, always reliably, Sunday, 4:44 p.m. Cheers, guys.